All right, here's the mileage check for today. We're a little less than 150 miles from 200,000. And today we're going to be doing, we're going to be removing this headliner. All right, with the front two seats removed and the steering wheel and the center console, we got as much room as possible to go out the front passenger door. And that's how we're doing it. All right, old headliner's out. And we barely got the new one in, and that was very difficult. All right, that was the final fill up before 200,000. So there it is. I didn't have to fill it up, but I just wanted a full tank. And we'll see, no warning lights. We are at 199,940, so 60 miles away from 200,000. And we finally got all the headliner in. So we got full Alcantara headliner now. And today we won't reach 200,000, but we will be driving a bit to pick up a very special car. All right, 199,553. This is where we're going to park it for today. Looking really good for almost 200,000. All right, here's what we got going on today. All right, my 210 has returned home. We are at 199,967. So we dropped it off with 199,553. So that is well worth the miles just to swap cars for the E60. It is Sunday, July 3rd, 2022. We're at 199,967. I think today's the day we're going to hit 200,000. All right, today we are heading to Sunday Steel. It is early in the morning, and we're in good company today. All right, we just hit 3 more miles at 970. We went to go meet up with a friend. All right, we just wrapped up Sunday Steel. We're at 980, so let's keep going. I did the last oil change before 200,000. So check it out. This oil filter I changed 6 months ago. It's got less than 500 miles on it. It's not even stained. Might be a little excessive, but I like my oil clean. We're using Mobil 1 540. So we're letting her warm up right now, check the level, and then we're good to go. We are 13 miles away, so 199,987 oil change was done. So if you look back at my last video when I did the last oil change, I'll insert the clip, but yeah, really not that many miles. Cool variety of cars here, check it out. So we got 16 valve W140 S500, 500E, and a Lorinser 300 CE. I've got my 210 here. this is it, the last 10 miles. We are cruising down the beach. We got C124 S500 and a 300C coupe Lorinser and a W140 S500. So it should be pretty fun. That's a really cool sight. C124s. Last 5 miles, this is it. That's it, 200,000. I guess the car's worth a lot less now. Wow. I've had this car since 140,000 miles for 8.5 years. I put 60,000 miles on it. It's been my daily, my only car. It's been my show car. It's been through it all. So that is incredible, 200,000 miles. Wow. Okay, it is a day after hitting 200,000. So let's just check the mileage real quick. 200,023. So let's pull the car out, get her cleaned up, and we'll talk a little bit. So for the last couple of years, since I do not drive this car a whole lot, it does not get washed. I constantly wipe it down with the Meguiar's Ultimate Wireless Wash and Wax. So after every single drive, I wipe the paint down with this, and it's not perfect, but you know, it's easier than washing the car for me. And it still remains relatively swirl free. It's not perfect though, so just FYI. I wipe the glass down with invisible glass, so it's just streak free. That's why I like it. It's also safe on tint. And I use Meguiar's number 40 Vinyl and Rubber Cleaner Conditioner. This works really well for any plastics and rubber. This product is great on tires. I particularly like it for the mirror boots. It keeps the mirror boots nice and protected from the sun, and it makes it soft and supple so they don't get hard and crack. So this is what I've been using for the last 5+ years now. 200,023, all the pixels work. Let's give her a cold start. Check it out, 200,000 miles, no lights on the dash, no check engine light. I'll scroll through here. No malfunction. So this car, everything works on it. That's supposed to work. You can probably see, but I did not wipe this car down pretty well, so please excuse the kind of almost dirty looking paint. So here it is. This is my 2002 E430 at 200,000 miles. What a milestone. As you saw yesterday, I was able to record the moment it turned 200,000. So it rolled over from 199 all the way to 200,000. So that was pretty incredible. I've had this car since about 140,000 miles. So I will see if I could dig up a picture of the first time I ever took a picture of the odometer, but that was quite a while ago. I've had this car for 8.5 years. It's been my daily, it's been my only car at one point. It's been garage kept, it's been parked outside, it's been through it all with me. And here it is in the best shape it's ever been in my ownership. So I just want to go over exactly how good this car has been to me in the last 60,000 plus miles. So if you haven't watched my 8-year ownership experience video, I highly recommend you check it out. I go over every little thing I did to this car. In this video, hopefully I won't repeat myself too much from that video, but I just want to go over everything that I had to do to get this car 200,000. And it really wasn't that much. So let's start out with the most obvious. Cosmetically, this car has not always been this nice. I had it painted. The previous owner before me, the second owner, painted it, and unfortunately it was a very cheap paint job, so I had to get it redone to make it look decent. If your car is original paint, do not touch it if it's in good shape. If you don't have clear coat failure and there's anything major, literally the only thing you'll ever have to do is repaint the front end. So the front fenders, hood, and bumper, those are the first things that get ruined from rock chips on the road. But other than that, the rest of the body on this is solid. Yeah, of course the body looks nice now because I had it painted. And black paint's really hard to keep nice. It's not perfect, but I try my best. Wheels were refinished, of course, and these were not the wheels that came on the car. I had some aftermarket wheels, so I had to replace them. So I had monoblock Aero 3s, the SL wheels from the R230, and then I got these, which were period correct for this car. Windows were tinted again under my ownership. I replaced the taillights a couple times. So at first I did the aftermarket LEDs, which I personally like how they looked, but the factory lights, they just look so much better. And I got some used ones, which are fine, but then the circuit board delaminates from its contacts, so it doesn't make contact, and you get a bulb out indicator and the bulb doesn't work. So I just bought new ones. So that's something you'll have to do if your car is older and has age on it. So I do live in California, which is kind of a stricter state when it comes to emissions. So this car has always passed smog for me. I've never had any real check engine lights. There's only been 2 instances where I had a check engine light. The first one being the EGR code P0400. So luckily all that was the vacuum line surrounding the EGR. There's probably about less than 10 in total. I think it was about 7 or 8. I replaced all of those, so no more check engine light there. And the only other thing that failed is the valve for the fuel evaporation system, which I'll show you right now. This little guy right here failed on me, so I just replaced it. I think it was about a $50 or $80 part, and no tools required. It just unclip it from the electrical connector and that hose, and it's ready to go. So that was the only check engine issues I've ever had. This still passes smog, even though the exhaust is not completely stock anymore. So perhaps you can see, perhaps you cannot, but that is not how it came from the factory, but it still passes. So engine work wise, there really hasn't been anything major. I did the spark plugs when I first got it around 140,000. I've done oil changes about every 5,000 miles. And now that I'm not driving this car so much, I do it every 6 months. So some people might say that's excessive, but seriously, clean oil does not hurt your engine. Yeah, it costs a little bit of money, but hey, it's just easier than doing anything major to the car. I replaced the valve cover gaskets one time, and they are leaking again, so I'll have to do that again. But seriously, like, this car has been so reliable to me. I just done like fluid changes. I changed some mounts and rubber bushings, but other than that, like, this car has been so reliable. It's only left me stranded one time through no fault of its own. The one time it left me stranded, it was aftermarket battery died because the previous owner installed a laser jammer on this car. So it was an improperly installed laser jammer that was wired to always be on no matter what, even when the car was off. So the battery, of course, did not last. So I had that removed. Even though I do like laser jammers, I had that removed, and that solved all my issues. So this car literally never left me stranded. I daily drove this car for like 4 years. It was so reliable to me. So see, the engine bay looks fairly nice. I just do keep it clean and condition the plastics as much as I can. So I have not replaced the coolant tank yet, which I will do. And I will replace the washer system bottles. So we'll notice I did replace this one up top. It's a little bit nicer than one in the front, but I do have all new plastics here. So that'll just make it look a lot nicer. And then if we look here, this is the only thing that's lacking in my engine bay is the seal around the wiper. And that is kind of a real pain to change, but I do have one, and I think I will eventually be doing that. But that's just not fun to do. But overall, like, this engine bay looks really clean. Of course, I keep the fluids as clean as possible. Still shuts very nice. I always liked the design of the 210. It's just my favorite Mercedes of the time. Some people hate the bug eye, but that's personally one of my favorite design elements of this car. And I think the facelift AMG styling really complements the front of this car really well. In case anyone wondered what oil I use, I recently switched to Mobil 1 5W40. Previously, I was using the Mobil 1 0W40, but Mercedes has changed the oil recommendation to 5W40 from 0 on the 113 engine cars. So luckily, this is now offered at Walmart for a discounted rate. So a 5-quart jug like this of oil was about $24, so I think that's a good deal. You don't have to get the factory fluid because the factory fluid is this Mobil 1 anyway. And I usually use a factory oil filter too, but MAN is a factory supplier, so if you get a MAN filter, that's just as good. I have never once used any other oil personally, and I've never used any oil additives at all. I don't believe in them. If your engine's fine, don't use them. In my opinion, they're just a band-aid solution to whatever issues your engine's having. If you have clean oil in there and you keep changing it, your engine should be fine. As far as the transmission goes, I did do 2 services on it, so that included the filter change as well as the gasket and 13-pin connector. Luckily, the fluid was clean and it's still clean, so I have no doubts that this transmission will keep going for me without any issues. The only thing that could potentially pop up is the conductor plate, but that is something that you could just swap out and you'll be fine. I did do 1 diff fluid change, so I should do another one, which I will do very soon. I have changed the power steering fluid once, I've changed the coolant a couple times, I've changed the radiator once just for preventative reasons and also to fit the airbox. Other than that, this car has literally just been fluid changes and putting gas in it. It's been Toyota level reliable in my opinion. Of course, that comes at a cost. The parts are more expensive, the oil's more expensive, the gas is more expensive, everything's just a little bit more expensive because it is a Mercedes. So I have replaced a couple light bulbs here and there. I've only ever had to replace the main headlight bulb once, and that was on the passenger side. So I got a OE replacement, so it matched because these are xenon lights, you're supposed to replace them in pairs, and I did not. However, I got lucky with that. So brakes wise, when I first got the car was low on brake pads and I finished them. Then I had to replace them, so I just did all 4 at the same time, and then about a year later I had to do the fronts again, and then that got me through another year, and I decided I want to do the AMG brakes. So I did the AMG brakes, and ever since then I've not had to do them. But my driving style has changed quite a bit since then, and my driving habits as well. I don't drive this car nearly as much. Fuel economy wise, I really hope you don't buy a 210 to get good fuel economy, because that's just a bad idea. But so driving in the city, I'll probably average around the mid-teens if I'm kind of behaving. So let's average it out to 15 miles a gallon city. It could be as low as like 10 if I was being a total idiot driving around, but it still was pretty good for a V8. If I were to drive a lot of highway, I could get between 20 to 25 miles a gallon, which is pretty good for a V8. But once again, do not buy this car for fuel economy. That is not the reason you should get it. So interior wise, it's still in great shape. I've never replaced the dash. There's no cracks in it. The wood is not perfect. There is a crack right there in the center somewhere. The center console piece is nice. The ashtray is nice. This piece with all the window switches kind of is not nice. Shift surround's not nice. That's not nice, but the doors are all good, so that's nice. Seats, I replaced the seats not because of wear, I just wanted the two-tone red AMG seats. My other seats were actually a little bit nicer than these, the original black leather seats, but I had to have the AMG two-tone, so luckily I had a full matching interior with door panels and the steering wheel, back seats. So we'll talk about my headliner. Of course, I had a sagging headliner. Every W210 will sag eventually, especially if you have the original material with the foam backing. I opted to wait. I glued my headliner temporarily. And in fact, I still have my old headliner. So here it is. I glued the back. So it was sagging from pretty much right around here all the way back. So like a total cheap ass, in the car without removing much, I kind of removed the light, peeled it back a little bit. There's a clip right here which allows you to bring it down. Did not undo the sides. I peeled it back, scraped as much of the foam off as I could, made a total mess, and I sprayed adhesive to the board directly, and I kind of just held it with my hands until it dried up, and that actually held me for a couple years. Pros of that, really cheap, cost me only adhesive and my time. Cons, looks terrible because all that foam makes a big mess, and yeah, people are like, did someone throw up in your back seat because this looks disgusting? But nope, that is just the foam. And if you want to see what the foam looks like, here it is. We'll see in some spots it's thicker than the rest. So you see right there, this is a fiberglass board, and that foam is what the adhesive attaches to. I did not like the gray material either. This is actually really cheap looking fabric. Mercedes did have this available at one point. I don't know if it still is, but they did do the updated material, which still looks terrible in my opinion. So I wanted my interior to look as nice as possible, so this is period correct material. They did offer Alcantara in the late 90s, early 2000s. The E39 M5 came standard with this in the facelift model, so I don't know why the W210 always had the cheaper material. This was definitely a big downside to 210 versus E39. But here it is, all anthracite Alcantara. This is actually the same anthracite color that Mercedes uses. So there's a full video coming on my headliner, but I was able to find the guy that did all the Rentec cars back in the day, and he knows the supplier that Mercedes uses for their material. So this is the correct Mercedes anthracite black. So we'll see, it matches the dash pretty well. This is not true black, there's a lot of gray in it, and we did paint the plastics to match as best as we could. So this is a custom color that we mixed, and we'll see it matches really nice. So of course I did the A-pillars, all the visors and stuff. So I of course kept my stock visors. Some people want to do visors from like a later model S-Class AMG because they kind of fit, but it doesn't look right in my opinion. If you get Alcantara from a different car, it never matches. So I just had to get all from the same roll. We did the B-pillars as well, so B-pillars match. We did, of course, the sunroof, C-pillars, and it was kind of dumb, but we did the hat tray in Alcantara too. So this piece was extremely hard to do and extremely expensive, but it does look very, very nice. Just completes the whole look of the inside. So having a dark colored headliner definitely just changes the whole vibe of this car when you're sitting inside, and I do like it. And it works really well with my LEDs and my dark tint. So earlier this year I was creeping up on 200,000 miles. I was in the 199,000 mile range. So I decided to kind of slow down my driving with this car because I just had to get the headliner done before I hit it. It was kind of more like symbolic to hit it with a nice headliner. And unfortunately I did want to get new wheels on it, but the model blocks it did fine for me. So cross 200,000 with a new headliner and these nice wheels. If it had been for my Ford F-150, I would have hit 200,000 miles in this thing about 5 years ago in 2017. I was daily driving this car everywhere, and I was driving kind of a lot, about 10 to 15,000 miles a year. So that definitely helped slow it down. So that was kind of why, like if you ever wonder why, like, oh, how do you keep your 210 so clean? I don't drive it. That is the reason. Only reason why. I'm sure if I daily drove this, it would not look this nice. So yeah, in 60,000 miles and 8.5 years, there's never been anything major to fail in this car. It has always kept going no matter what. Even though it always hasn't driven nice, it still got me to where I need to go. So that is just a true testament of how reliable the W210 is and just how good the 112, 113 engines that Mercedes made of this era were. I really do like them better than the 104s and even the 119. I like the M119, don't get me wrong, but the 104, if this car had a 104, I guarantee it would need a lot more work than this to keep going. So I might be a little biased there. I highly doubt it though. I really do like this motor. I think it's great. So I just want to mention tire usage as well. So I've had this car on square wheels and square tires and staggered, of course. Tire usage will vary on how you drive the car. I have rotated my tires. I find that it wasn't completely necessary if I wasn't always like flooring it everywhere and making the rear wheel spin. Seriously, the tires on this car, if you have good bushings and good alignment, will last you a while. And please do get quality tires. Like I prefer Michelin's, of course, everyone has their own preference, but quality tires, driving habits that are not totally reckless will get you really far with tire usage. However, I do go through a lot of tires because I am reckless. Be better than me, guys. I also do actually have the previous tires and wheels I was using. The rears really even wear, even with a little bit of negative camber. No issues there. However, in the front, take a look at this. I had a bent control arm on the front driver's side, so I believe this was the passenger tire right here. So we'll see, it's actually not too bad. A little bit of inner wear right there, but I mean, we were all at the wear bars anyway. But we check out my driver's side. We'll see the outer edge kind of wore first. So that was a bent control arm. However, I did get aligned and they still got it within spec. But over time, obviously it got more bent. So this was the result of that. Steering wheel wasn't straight, but I swapped out that control arm and we were totally good to go. New tires were fine. Car drives completely straight. So that just goes to show that the W210 with good alignment will make the tires last just fine. So one thing I want to mention too, particularly because owners of the 124 and older cars typically hate on W210 because of the electronic usage in this car. However, I've never had a single electronic module fail that was significant. The only thing that failed electronically was that little valve, and particularly I want to talk about the key. I only got one key when I had this car, just one master key, and we'll see this is the original key that came with the car. This is not a new key, and this key was the only key I had until about last year, and it lasted me and it was good. And well, of course I was careful too. I never got it wet or anything or crushed it, but it lasted. I've never had any issues with the key opening the car, starting the car, anything like that. And I only had one key, which is really dumb. Don't do that. Have two keys. The electronics of the W210 is a non-issue in my opinion, and people just get scared for no reason. So I have no doubts in my mind that this car with this engine and transmission will go another 200,000 easily. Just, you know, obviously keep up on the maintenance. However, I do want to possibly do an engine swap in the future. Hopefully we can do that and you guys can see me do it, but we'll see where things go. So there you have it, 8.5 years later, 60,000 miles, we're at 200,000. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below, and thanks for watching.